Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Death By, where contestants will earn reps for their arguments for a chance to stand on top of the podium pedestal. I am your host, Lauren Kalil. Whoever I decide has the best argument through the final round will earn 30 seconds to talk about a topic of their choosing. Before we get to today's episode, we want to thank our sponsor, Thirdsy. I literally just got back from the European semifinal, and I cannot thank them enough for having the travel packs. I brought them on the red eye on the way there, all the way on going home, and I slept the entire flight. So a little bit jet lagged, but not as much as I would have been if I didn't have my best friend Thirdsy in my backpack. Something that's really great about them that I love is it's not habit forming. They don't have melatonin in their product, but they do have some supplements that I was already taking anyways, so you can have them all in one drink between collagen, magnesium, GABA, and L-theanine. If you want to try out Thirdsy, you can get 20% off by going to thirdsy.com, THIRDZY.com, and use the code DEATHBY for your chance to sleep better tonight. On today's episode, we have the Chief Executive Officer at HWPO, Matt O'Keefe, affiliate owner and CrossFit analyst, Chase Ingraham with Get With The Programming, also fresh off the plane from France, and founder and head coach of Underdogs Athletics, Justin Cotler. They get better and better every week. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. We are into the season. 2 semifinals done. 2 more weeks to go. How are we all feeling?
Excited / tired, but a good tired.
Chase, you did a great job on the broadcast.
Thank you. Big week coming up this week. Very big. So
it is.
This one's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Lauren. Is Chase, you're awesome, man. I sent you that note. It was so well done. Even Friday, I know there's mixed reviews often on that approach, but quite frankly, what a gift to be able to even see. And then the commentary was outstanding. I wasn't at the event for the actual weekend. I had to come home for my daughter's graduation. So I watched most of it, and man, you guys were awesome. Great job.
That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. And congrats on your daughter graduating, dude. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. Sad but great day.
Justin, you're okay too, though.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm not as exciting. That's all right. I can take it.
All right, guys, let's get into it. We have a lot to discuss. We even have a bonus round this week, so let's play Death By. Exciting. As we mentioned, we are 1 week into semifinals as Asia and Europe have sent the first round of athletes to the CrossFit Games in Texas. Specifically, though, looking at Europe, the stadium was packed. More than 7,000 spectators attended the French Throwdown over the weekend, and you could definitely feel it inside that arena. Now, given the size of the crowd, the level of enthusiasm, and not to mention the level of elite athletes, is Europe the new capital of CrossFit? Matt O'Keefe, we will start round number 1 with you.
Coming right at me. That's aggressive, I would say, to say the capital of CrossFit. Quite frankly, it's undeniable that it's, we often talk about it being a little bit behind. Oh, sorry, my phone's ringing. A little bit behind where we were in the evolution in a positive manner. But, I think a lot of excitement around it being, an emerging market. We're very athlete specific. And quite frankly, I think, we got excited about open and quarterfinals, and you need to see the whole semifinal phase play out when it comes to the athlete side. Now, from an attendance perspective, I think once the 3 weeks are over, it's undeniable that the interest level there from the fans are at the highest it's ever been in that, region or location geographically. And, honestly, it's maybe bigger and better than it ever was in the United States at the semifinal phase. It was wild in Lyon. The fans were outrageously, energetic and passionate about what was going on. It's obvious that, they deserve a games at some point. It's definitely emerging, but the capital, That's aggressive, quite frankly. And I think you'll see that when you go to the CrossFit Games this year. That will be the biggest event in the history of CrossFit because of, changing locations in a really cool city. That's Chase Ingram's home. But the capital, no. Athletes are emerging. Don't worry, though. You will see there are plenty of great athletes still in North America and other regions. So let's calm down a little bit.
O'Keefe is telling me to calm down on a Tuesday. Do you know that when somebody tells somebody to calm down, it never brings a good response?
I mean, yeah. If O'Keefe told it to me, like dudes can tell it to dudes, but there's, yeah.
It's one of those things.
My wife
It's
to
one of
calm
those
down
phrases.
has
Yeah.
Oh
never.
God, no, that's
Does
not
not work. Yeah.
That never works.
Apologies. I didn't know a
Honestly-
better way to express that. But it is. We're getting a little
You
excited
speaking to the
right
noise,
now.
right? You weren't talking
Yes.
to Lauren. You were just talking to the question. Right?
To the question. I mean, hey, look at just to finish is like, I think and Yana Krusky is a phenomenal athlete, but you look at open and quarterfinals results. I think we need to really play the semifinal phase out. I mean, there is a lot of excitement, I think, around that portion of the CrossFit Games season is because of the results that we saw on the first phase of this. And, I think there's a lot of veterans that are going to say, hey, by the way, I'm still here, and look at, what the games plays out to look like in August as well with those same veterans. So you can't deny the fans, though. I mean, that is as cool an event, I think, as anybody's ever been to in the CrossFit space from a fan perspective. So, it's obviously emerging.
Okay. O'Keefe says calm down. It's an aggressive question. I'll still give you 2 points for some good explanations in there. Yeah. Hey, I'm playing nice. I gave 2 points when somebody told me to calm down.
I
Chase,
love it.
you were there. You could
I was
see
there.
the crowds from the broadcast booth and the tight races that we have. What are your thoughts here?
So this came up a couple months ago, and I got a lot of flack for where I said American or at least North American CrossFit fans are the most spoiled fans in the world, and I still stand by that. But is Europe the new capital of CrossFit? No, it is not. But it is freaking close. But if you got to look at the whole thing, like, are we talking about athletes? Are we talking about performance? Are we talking about people who show up for semifinals? Are we talking about affiliates? Are we talking about open registration? It's really, really close. But US, when it comes to affiliates, US still has more than Europe, but it is getting closer, and that gap is narrowing. When you think about open participation, right? Europe is actually on par, if inching ahead of them, as well as quarterfinals registration. But when you look at athlete performance, they're not there yet. If you just look back at the 2023 CrossFit Games, 12 of the top 20 were both North America, had 12, and then Europe had the other 8 with a couple Australians thrown in there. Now, I have to say huge thanks to Canada. Usually the only time I'll bring you in to support the United States will be representative at the CrossFit Games in your performances. But here we go, right? But here's the thing. It's close. It's very close. And I think it's not a matter of if the games are going to Europe, it's when the games are going to Europe. And when they do, it may be the wildest CrossFit Games we have ever seen in the history of the sport. It's going to happen. Semifinals in France was unreal. It was sold out Saturday and Sunday. They have ravenous fans, and we just haven't seen that. But when you think of the situation as a whole, is like there are just bigger and more events in North America by name and by, I would say, experience. But you look at some of these small events in Europe, and there's thousands of athletes at them. We just don't know about them yet. Right. And the athletes here are up and coming, and they're just not quite there as far as engagements and fans yet. It will happen 2 or 3 years. I think it's going to be turning the tables, which is when I believe the CrossFit Games should be looking at coming over. But right now, CrossFit is still North America centric.
3 points for Chase. Justin Cotler.
I think North America's got to step up, man. Like I was supposed to go to Europe, didn't end up going this year. But I mean, last year, my experience at the European semifinal, I was far more impressed with Europe than I was with North America. I thought the North American semifinals last year were extremely lacking, just as far as the vibe was concerned, and there was just no juice. I mean, we've been hearing about how much juice there's been at Torian forever, obviously, but it's just a smaller market. And I think Europe is right there. I think Europe is I've got to see this week. I'll be obviously in Carson, and it's going to be extremely nostalgic to be there, and I'm excited. But if North America doesn't bring it, man, I think for sure. I mean, with Rogue now going to Scotland, we see some of the big events that are moving over there. I think we've seen a shift, and I think there's an argument to be made now that Europe is the new capital.
What would
Ooh.
3 points for Cotler? What would be the impact on the sport if and when the CrossFit Games do move to Europe?
Well, I think this would be massive. I mean, I just think people are rabid for it, and we see it growing, in leaps and bounds in so many countries there, depending on where they go. But regardless, I think it'll be huge. That's not to say that I don't think it's going to be massive here this year. I do. I think, I think with the focus being on individuals and teams, there's going to be, less, and the age groups obviously have their own competitions now. Where it is, the ease of kind of getting to the Dallas Fort Worth area as far as travel is concerned is great. I do expect the games to be massive this year. I think it's going to be great, and I think North America will represent. But I've got to see it at the semifinal level, because last year, frankly, I was disappointed with the North American semifinals. I just didn't think that, like I talked about, I just didn't feel much juice there. It felt very static to me, and completely different than when I was in Europe. So I'm excited this week to go, and maybe my view changes next week, and I come back and I say I'm completely wrong. But right now, after what we've seen at these last two European semifinals, and we see how rabid these fans are, and how good these athletes are, I think there's definitely an argument to be made.
I think the venue plays a vital role in that. The last 2 years in Europe, they've been two of the coolest venues in the history of CrossFit, hands down. The German venue was outrageously perfect for what we do. I only saw this pre-event, but it looked the same in France. I think you have to be cautious with that, though, in terms of, growth, of the sport from a financial perspective, viewership. You've got to look at the broadcast numbers. Does that hurt the U.S. viewership? And again, Europeans could say the same. Well, I'm watching this thing at a certain time too. I think there's like a lot of balance there that needs to be had. Because you could erode the market here really quickly if you're not paying close enough attention to it. So there's a lot to be thought through on that. I mean, it is obvious the CrossFit Games has to have a time in Europe very soon. But I think there's more nuance to it than people probably realize because of that stuff. I mean, you can't completely ignore the fact that the lion's share of viewers for the broadcast for the CrossFit Games are in the United States. So, now you're, I watch these things, and I was getting up at 4:00 in the morning to watch them. You start to put that barrier of entry in front of a consumer, you probably lose a lot. So we have to be very cautious with it.
So then what could that impact be when you think of viewership, even TV time slots, partnerships, sponsors, vendors, if the games were in Europe? Is that better or worse for the overall growth of the sport?
It's a great question. I think it's a whole different set of brands that are engaged in an event like that. To be honest with you, it's really difficult for maybe a U.S. business to just pop up and do business for 1 week because of VAT and all kinds of other things associated with being functional in that environment. But again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The Olympics do it, other sports do it. So I think there's a lot of energy we can derive from, other people's experience. It's not simple is the answer. I think Rogue will be a great, way to kind of gain some experience around this. And Katie and Bill can give a lot of feedback to CrossFit on that, because they're taking a huge risk and step that I think is going to be monumentally successful personally. But again, there's a large investment that they're willing to make that I don't think people are aware of, that, they don't need to do, but I think they're exploring that market and helping us evolve over there. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions to be answered around that. I don't think it's just easy to say, hey, look, at all the people that showed up in France, let's just do one there. Cost and logistics and, being efficient for the entire global audience is an important factor that we need to consider.
All right, let's move on now to topic number 2, a hot topic right now surrounding event 3 with the legless rope climbs. Specifically, what happened on the floor in the women's heat in Europe with Games competitor Rebecca Vittison. As she came down from one of her legless rope climbs, her knee tweaked, sending her to the ground, clearly in severe pain. When the medical team eventually got onto the floor minutes later, she had decided to advance and continue the workout. However, a few reps into her box jump overs, she went down again, and then the medical team took her off the floor. We discussed this last year, actually, during semifinals, but we're going to talk about it again. What is the appropriate response from CrossFit if there's an injury on the floor? And where is there a line? What is the line? Chase Ingraham, we're going to start topic number 2 with you.
The thing that we need to start off is like injuries are a part of sport. It's in every single sport around the world, and that just happens. And that has nothing to do with CrossFit or a medical team. And it all comes down to the athlete itself. And accidents happen, injuries happen. That's just the nature of sports. And it's sad to see, but that just comes with the territory. The other thing with the medical response there on site is that I think a lot of people looked at CrossFit as to why they weren't stepping in earlier to help her out, or why did they step in so hard the second time? Like, that had nothing to do with CrossFit. In fact, CrossFit wasn't even allowed to have medical staff on site because at that arena, they have to have their own medical team that's provided by the Red Cross. So people thinking that CrossFit should have stepped in, they were actually not allowed to even do that. So it was totally out of CrossFit's hands. It was totally out of the French Throwdown's hands. And it was solely on that arena and the medical team that they had to provide care for Rebecca. So just to clear the air for that situation. But for her, here, listen, the only reason any governing body in sports should step in for injuries is, and you look at the ones that are mainly there, football, boxing, or MMA, is if there's something to do with the brain or possibility of death. Right? You'll see the white towel get thrown in because someone's getting punched so much they can't defend themselves and could get killed in the ring or in the octagon. The governing body steps in. If an NFL player gets wobbly on a hit and goes to the sideline, there's a third party that evaluates the video and sees if there's some type of neurological or brain trauma, and they take him out. After that, how many players in every single sport do you know that go out with sprained ankles, torn up knees, elbows, bicep tendon tears, oblique injuries? Like, it's on the athlete and their medical team to make the decision for them whether they're going to compete or not. Rebecca wanted to stay in the event, therefore she stayed in the event. Should she have? Probably not, but that's hindsight 2020. We don't even know exactly what happened to her when it did. We have our best guesses, and I think those ended up being correct. However, at the end of the day, if it's not life-threatening, it's on the athlete and their team to decide what they're going to do, and CrossFit should not step in and just be the governing body outside. Like I said, head trauma or potential of death, beyond that, it's on the athletes. That's sports.
3 points for Chase. Justin?
Yeah, I think it's good information, obviously, because as I was watching the feed, it was concerning that medical didn't get out to her quicker. But the fact that Chase just told us kind of what was going on and had the inside info on that is good for everybody to know, obviously, because we all wanted the response time to be a little bit quicker. I think without question, unless it is, I would say, unless it's life-threatening, I'm always an advocate for the athlete. Like, if the athlete wants to continue, then I'm okay with it. It's the athlete's body, it's the athlete's career, generally speaking. And maybe that makes me old school, but I guess that's what I am. I just feel like unless you can't continue, unless you just physically can't continue, the injury is too severe. I'm of the mindset that, that I know I would, and I would assume that most athletes would want to. So, obviously there are going to be injuries that we see that are too severe to continue. And sometimes, you look at like an NFL team, an NBA team, obviously they've got a ton of money invested. And sometimes those doctors make the decision for the athlete, even when the athlete wants to continue. But in our sport, generally speaking, it's on the athlete. If Rebecca wanted to continue, I have no issue with that whatsoever. And I'm assuming we're probably, unfortunately, going to see some more of those types of situations throughout semifinals and the games. And the way that I look at it is, medical responds, but if the athlete feels like they can continue kind of the way Roman did last year, I have absolutely no issue with that whatsoever.
3 points for Justin. O'Keefe?
Yeah, I think we're going to just, all sing the same tune here. It's, I think we've improved greatly last year. We saw at semifinals what I think were very poor decisions, not allowing athletes because of pec issues related to the muscle up with the go ruck on, and taking that away, seasons away from people because we weren't allowing them to be athletes on the floor, make their own decisions in non-life threatening, non-head injury situations. And then, yes, at the CrossFit Games, Roman was allowed to compete, which I think was a grand improvement. I mean, when that went on last year at semis, I was so confused. I mean, I come from a sports background, played sports in university, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, this is a sport. You're going to have dings. You're going to have tears. I mean, I played with a blown knee in high school. Like that's just the way sports are. Sometimes the greatest stories come out of situations like that. So I think we've evolved in a really positive manner in that regard. And I think we need to stay out of it. If it's not somebody's head or, somebody's life that's, in jeopardy in a situation like this, I think we need to leave it alone. Inform the athlete, post the workout. Here's what's going on and here's the potential damage you can do further, and let them make their own decision. I never understood why we've handled people with kid gloves like that when they're adults playing a big boy big girl sport. I dealt with this coaching Matt through my whole career. Every time he got hurt at the CrossFit Games, which was a lot, by the way, and nobody knows about it because he was in great fear that they weren't going to allow him to compete. When he fell off the net at that CrossFit Games, he tore his hip flexor. And they were looking at what's wrong with you, and he was just literally like, O'Keefe, don't say a word, and I'm gonna have to suck it up when they come over and try to poke and prod. I mean, that's not sports. We gotta evolve off of that type of stuff. So you know what, like, her situation, if she's waving somebody on the floor to help her, great, that's one thing. If not, it's sport. That's what you're out there to do. And unfortunately, it sounds crass, you get hurt playing sports. We all do. We've all experienced that. So, yeah, I've never understood that, honestly. It's been a really confusing piece of what we do for me, and I'm glad we've improved on that.
3 points for O'Keefe. Just to poll everybody, if that was any of us on the floor, who here would have tried to keep going if they could? Sean also has his hand up. Okay. Just out of curiosity.
I mean, bubble gum, duct tape, whatever what it takes. If you're performing and you're pursuing a goal, you're going to have to literally pry me off the floor. And I think everybody out there on that floor is the same.
Yep.
When you bring up the Matt comment with his hip flexor, what is the current ruling for CrossFit? So for example, if Rebecca didn't finish that event, came off with medical, and then realized, okay, I think I can continue the rest of the weekend, would she have been allowed? Does anybody know?
I know what it used to sound like, and it was something along the lines that, they had the right to approve or not allow you on the floor, whatever it was. Like CrossFit was in control of that in the past, and they flexed it at times, like they did last year with Alexander Caron at the Orlando Regional, which was honestly, and I think they would admit this now, such a really harsh, horrible choice. Frankly, because the kid could have sat on that workout and probably still qualified for the CrossFit Games. And you know what? Then we need to score our sport differently if you don't like that. Like that's quite frankly how it needs to work. But
I think
they were
we
in
saw
control.
this past weekend. I think we saw a couple of elbow ruptures. Ant Haynes, I believe, and
Yep.
I believe there was another young woman in Asia, and they both were allowed
There's
to
one in Europe
compete. In Europe too, and they were allowed to compete in event 6. Now they just rode the bike because obviously they couldn't do ring muscle ups, but they were allowed to do the calories. And honestly, I think that's exactly how it should be. If they want to go out there and they want to do that, that's fine. They've earned the right to do that. They qualify for semifinals. Listen, it's fucking hard to qualify for semifinals. Okay, like really, really hard. And at the end of the day, if they want to go out there and experience event 6, even if it's just the bike and get out there, with their fellow competitors, they've earned the right to do that. And I don't think anyone should tell them that they can't do that.
Roman Krennikov finished 3rd at the CrossFit Games with a broken foot We need no other data at this point. So that's it. It's literally it. We've proved our point. Let them compete no matter what, unless they have a head injury or they're going to die.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on now to topic number 3. Looking specifically at who's qualified for the games thus far, 36% of the athletes are rookies. With that, games veterans like Jona Koski, Uldis Upanix, 30 Helgadottir, they did not qualify. Is this the year where we see the tide shifting from veterans to rookies? We will start this topic or this round with Justin Cotler.
No. I mean, that's as simple as it gets. Absolutely not. I mean, you see who won, you see who dominated. They're not rookies, and you're going to see for the remainder of semifinals, the people that will dominate are not going to be rookies. It's going to be veterans. It's going to be veterans at the top of the leaderboard in all the semifinals. It's going to be veterans at the top of the leaderboard at the games. It's going to be household names that we have come to know and either love or hate, depending on who you root for the last several years. But without question, rookies will absolutely not play a part in who's going to be in the top 5 at the CrossFit Games this year. That's just the way it's going to be. And listen, there are some really good rookies, and there's, they'll go to the games, and I'm sure a few of them will show out. But I can promise you right now, you're not going to see any rookies that are going to be in the top 5 at the CrossFit Games. I would bet my house on it.
I would agree with that. I guess what I mean is more of, will we see more rookies at the CrossFit Games? And is this where we start to see more of the veterans filter out as new names emerge? Chase is shaking his head.
No.
2 points for Cotler. Chase, go ahead.
Am I supposed to be third? I think I'm third on this one. Okay.
Are you? Oh, I'm sorry.
He wants to be third. He wants to soak it all.
No. I'm giving you opportunities to not steal your question, because I don't need your answer.
Yeah, we're gonna probably have a very similar one. The
Go
answer
ahead,
is this is like a double calm down. So it is absolutely
still not.
A double calm down.
It's like I think that, and that's to the question.
Get the first negative points in the history of Death By.
It's not the question. It's not the question. It's to the question, not to you, Lauren. And honestly,
hey, it's okay. I write the questions.
Oh, there you go.
I just want to get good conversation. It's not that I agree with what the question asks. It's okay. It's just a question. Go ahead.
See, this is why I'm going third.
Yes, you knew I would sink myself. I took the bait. You're welcome, Chase.
Stabbing holes in his own life raft.
No, it's. I don't know what people would see that would suggest that. Yeah, there's going to always be some net new people at the CrossFit Games, but I mean, is Amy Kringle a rookie? Yes, at the CrossFit Games, but she's a veteran CrossFitter. Like, she's net new to the CrossFit Games. No, I mean, watch the way the CrossFit Games finishes this year, and I would agree a lot with what Justin said. Like, I think it's that's a journey that requires a lot of experience to have grand results at. So I think you'll see it play out that way at the games, and I think even qualifying over the next couple of weeks. Certainly there's going to be a crop of, a dozen new people every year. And I don't think that's going to be much different than what we've looked at in the past. You also have to remember what we've watched over the last 10, 12, 14 years is the evolution of a sport. And it was a lot easier, in the prior 10 years to establish, real estate and own it because, it's gotten more competitive over years. So there's certainly going to be a net new group that comes to the CrossFit Games. But again, they're not rookies. Like, a lot of people think that, when you see somebody new going to the CrossFit Games, that's like, this, fountain of youth, net new, CrossFitter. These kids like Justin Medeiros have been CrossFitting for 10 years, and it's a longer process to get to that stage. But when the results, are in on Sunday night in Fort Worth, it's going to be mostly the same names for the most part that you're going to see at the top of the leaderboard. So, yeah, not yet. There's a lot of people that are going this year that I think are going to build that experience to emerge over the next couple of years. So, we have somebody in our camp that, I think is going to have a really good time and great experience and get to swing his bat for some home runs and have a good result. But, quite frankly, there's a lot to be learned at that stage. And no, we're not there yet.
You're all going to be shocked by this, but I'm going to give O'Keefe 4 points for that. Calling the kettle
Wow.
black. Just saying it how it is.
Like it.
I can handle it. Chase, you're up.
All right, I'm going to triple stamp the double stamp there. As far as the answer is unequivocally no. We are not seeing a shift from veterans to rookies, and there's a few reasons for that. I mean, if you look at what O'Keefe is saying, is what are we talking about a rookie? Is it their first appearance at regionals? Because a lot of the rookies that made it have been knocking on the door for years. And where your top rookie finished, 4th for Aniola Kai for the men, 5th for Amy Kringle for the women. That doesn't seem like a changing of the guard to me yet. But Father Time is undefeated. We're going to get rookies every year. We got 4 for the men, 3 for the women in the top 10 at the European semifinal alone. But when you think about what rookies do, how are they going to do at the games? How is that going to translate? I think that's when you might see tide shifting. And look at the best 3 to ever do it: Tia, Rich, Matt. The only one that ever did anything their rookie year was actually Rich, where he walked in, won his semifinal, and got 2nd at the CrossFit Games. Tia didn't do that her rookie year at semifinals or regionals. Matt didn't do that his rookie year at semifinals. So no, it's not happening. But rookies will come in every single year. But the other reason why I don't think we'll see it this year especially is because of the programming. The programming is so beautifully classic CrossFit that the old guard, this is what they're the best at. They are just classic CrossFitters to the bone because they've been doing it for 10 plus years. They're not going anywhere. Yeah, Turi didn't make it this year, but she didn't make it the year before either. Yona didn't make it because he was sick for half the competition, right? The veterans are going to do very well with this programming. There's nothing unique that's going to throw them for a loop, that the new athletes been doing tricks in their backyard with double under crossovers, pirouettes, and wall-facing handstand push-ups. The veterans will be fine. There'll be new people every year, but we're not having a change into the guard yet.
Okay, 4 points for Chase. Do you think that we will see another Rich Froning do what he did?
Rookie debut win and then a dominating finish at the CrossFit Games minus a rope climb?
Yeah.
No.
Well, he didn't win his debut.
No, I said at regionals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And he had a dominating performance at the games. He just lost it.
He did. He just couldn't. Yeah, he just couldn't climb her up. No, I don't think so.
There's a reason why I only mentioned those 3, because rarely are we ever going to see anything like that again, especially as the sport matures.
By the way, you could say that of that group too. I mean, there's a possibility if those people were showing up now that they would do that. You can't question that. It's hard to tell, but I don't see anything right now that would tell me that. I think you saw that with Rich, you saw that with Matt, you saw that with Tia after her first performance at the games. You were like, okay, this person's different,
But it still took a little while for the majority of them. Even, Matt competed at semis, came in 6th before he made it to the games. Tia competed at regionals and was 16th or 18th her first year before she, qualified the next year. So Rich was the only one that I think his rookie year won regional and then finished 2nd at the games. Yeah. We're just not going to see that anymore. Like that, I don't think that's possible. I mean, maybe we're going to be wrong, but I don't think it's possible.
Hey, I hope I'm wrong. I love when that stuff happens. But
yeah, it's cool. It's a great
I'll stand by statistics until it does.
Yeah, totally.
All right, let's move on then to a bonus round this week. Since we just wrapped up with semifinals, I want to know who your biggest winner of the weekend is. Just one person. And Justin Cotler, you can pick if you want to go first, second, or third.
Ooh.
I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead. Start off our round.
Normally we stay on party lines on this question, and I could say Luka Dukic, obviously, who has joined Underdogs this season, and obviously with his resurgence back to the games, it's awesome, and I couldn't be happier for him. But I'm going to break party lines because the most impressive athlete that I saw all weekend was Emma Tall. I mean, I was
Mm.
absolutely blown away by her performances. 2 event wins. This is someone who finished 23rd in the 5K run at the games and finished 12 seconds behind Gabby for 3rd place in event 1. She looked, she's obviously a phenomenal athlete and has been for a long time. But at 32, I believe 32 years old, this was the best that I have ever seen her look. I was absolutely blown away. She was right in the mix to actually win that competition. I mean, she didn't finish too far behind Laura. I think her worst performance of the weekend, I think, was an 11th, and the rest of that, she absolutely smoked. She was incredibly impressive, and I would say she was the biggest winner.
Wow. Outside of party lines, Justin Cotler,
So
you just
proud of you,
earned 5
Justin.
points.
Good for
No,
you,
you know what?
buddy.
6 points. 6 points for Cotler.
He deserves it. He deserves it. Yeah,
Thanks.
I would have. Good job, Justin.
Thanks.
Matt O'Keefe, would you like to go next or last?
I mean, I'm going to be real surprised by this, I'm sure.
This is the
I'm
most
going to be so surprised by this.
I mean, this would be the most predictable delivery. I will go and I will say what is very predictable and talk about Victor Hoffer. And I know you all know that's coming, but how do we ignore what not only he did as an individual, but just the stage that was on? Victor was 18th going into Sunday, and we found out, things that you don't, have the ability to teach, which is, stones and gall and fortitude under adversity, and some of the hardest adversity that you'll see in our space. That French crowd was 100% on every move, blink, wink that he put out, and he had a lot of pressure on him. And he's a super young kid. He's 21 years old, lives in a super small town, very sheltered, and he was on display for 3 straight days, all day, every day, even in the warm-up area. So his performance is more incredible than I think people see on paper. That was really hard. That type of pressure is not something a lot of us have experienced in our life. Matt has, and I think was able to connect with him on those moments this weekend in a really positive way. But in the end, it's got nothing to do with us or anybody around him. He had to do it, and he did. And that's hard. That's hard with expectations aligned with what you're doing and what you're trying to pursue. So Victor Hoffer to me is the winner of the weekend. It was so impressive. I'm so proud of him, and I'm more than anything just really happy for the kid. Like, he's worked his ass off, and he's put himself in a position to be that successful. And I think the first 2 days shows how hard it is because he was nervous, and the last day shows who he is, and it's really bright for the future for him. I'm really excited for him.
Predictable answer, yet good answer. Major comeback for Victor. 3 points for Matt O'Keefe. Chase, biggest winner.
It's not a person. It's a semifinal.
Ooh.
And with all the noise coming into the European semifinal with strength of field and allocated spots and us not getting what we've earned over the past couple of years, and should the games come here and all this, that, and the other, the huge winners this week in the semifinal was Europe. Europe, as the athletes, as a community, and as the fans, won a victory with, I would say, the heart of the community that they desperately needed. Because like Victor Hoffer, there was a lot of expectation and noise about how good Europe is. It's been like that since the Open and how many spots they get or shouldn't get. And this semifinal proved, with the caliber of athletes, with the fans that show up, the community that rolls around it, from athlete to coaches to affiliate owners to people that just show up and spectate and volunteer, that Europe is finally ready to host the CrossFit Games one year. And I think that's the biggest win. Europe does deserve and have earned the right to get more spots than they got this year. It's just bad timing with the situation and the strength of field system that they decided to use after quarterfinals. After this year, I think, based off what happened at semifinals this year, the European semifinal region, all of Europe, are the biggest winners of week one. From fans to coaches to athletes, those are the biggest winners of the weekend.
Yes, they were. 3 points for Chase, with Justin Cotler pulling a Victor Hoffer. Started from the bottom, now he's here.
I'll take it. See what happens when you break party lines, boys? There you go.
Yeah.
You're kind of
You tried it for
the
the first time. It feels good, huh?
It paid off.
I still haven't tried it. I don't know how it feels.
Justin Cotler is the winner of the week. 30 seconds, topic of your choosing. You may begin.
Yeah, we talked about it prior to going on air, and I'm going to bring it up because it's frustrating to me. I don't understand not reseeding the final heats on the final day and the final event. I mean, I just don't get it. How do you not reseed and get the top 10 athletes at the time battling all in the same heat? The storylines, that can come from that. You've got athletes that are chasing, to get in. It's beyond me. I don't understand why they wouldn't reseed. I'm curious about an explanation. I'm sure that my big mouth will ask when we get to the briefing at Northwest semis. I actually can't wait to cause a little shit, stir up a little shit there, and ask why we're not reseeding. And I'm sure that the answer that I will be given, I will not be satisfied with. But ultimately, it makes no sense to me. I mean, we've been doing that for years, so I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense.
I was told logistics.
I don't want to hear logistics. That's a bunch of crap.
They reseeded the second to last workout.
There was a bigger break between those two events.
Quite frankly, I've run competitions. That's not a thing.
No.
You can reseed. You do have to be mindful of people working out. Like if somebody goes from like first to 40th, and they're like back to back, that is a factor. And I think that's considered at the CrossFit Games because, big Saturdays, big Fridays, you have to be careful with that because it's a total disadvantage. But in that moment, I mean, sticking to party lines.
Ask that athlete whether or not they care about their recovery time or whether or not they want to be in that last heat with everybody else.
I couldn't agree with you more.
No,
I
know.
Victor was a victim of that. Like Victor was a complete victim of this. And it was hard to kind of absorb that because it was just like, he'd worked his ass off to get in that position. And that workout could have been one of those workouts where being in that last heat was detrimental or beneficial,
Do you think that there were athletes or will be athletes that ultimately don't qualify for the CrossFit Games because of this?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
You almost saw it happen this past weekend. It was like so close. I mean, quite frankly, I would love to know what I need to do before I need to do it. That's just the answer to it. Is like, it's, people have that gear. It's competitiveness. It's like, Matt thrived in this. It's just my experience. I know I reference him a lot. It's just like being next to someone he had a different gear. He was never going to be denied. But it's harder when he's in the heat before because you go as hard as you think you can, and quite frankly, you've already proven you belong with a group of athletes that you're not with, and then predictably they might move slower. So there's a false sense of security. I don't agree with it at all.
And if you're in that final heat and you are battling against the guy that's 1 or 2 spots behind you, and you know what their number is, what their time was. I mean, you can strategize completely around that to make sure that you get that person. Like if it's you against, but if they're in the same heat as you, completely different, right? Like you can't, you're not controlling that situation.
Chase is lying in the weeds right now.
Very, very different. It's very different.
I'll give you an example of why you guys are right. How about that?
Yeah, I'm loving it.
So Victor Hoffer got 30th in event 1, which put him in the second heat going into Saturday. He won his heat in the rope climb workout, and 100%. Everybody would have said that he should have won or at minimum top 3 in that one, and he got 16th because nobody was with him. And the argument, the pushback you'll get is like, well, if they go as hard as they can, then they should be fine. And that's so untrue, because being next to people better than you makes you better. Period. End of story. That's the whole point of like racing against faster people than you, maybe tougher people than you in certain situations, because they'll propel you forward and vice versa, you to them. It 100% makes a difference, and no more difference than that final workout with that lunge to the end. And you saw it. How many people dropped dumbbells on the last step, not the last section, on the last step, right?
Yep.
And when you get that, like the cars trap their kid and a mom picks the car up, like that kind of stuff, which is real. Like, you get those things in those situations. You become superhuman if the situation calls upon it. And the fact that you want to sit there and nobody's said this, right? Nobody's actually said like, well, just go as hard as you can and it all should take care of itself. It's like, that's not how it works. And if I do hear that, like, then you've never competed before, because everyone does better on the floor unless they are afraid of the lights, and then they don't belong with.
They wouldn't even be in that last heat anyway if that's the case.
Right.
They're not going to like put themselves, like, nothing more important than what you're most connected to at this point, Chase, is the broadcast. Like, what we lost there is a race that mattered, to say victory and like such a monumental moment in front of a French crowd of all things. It's like, dude, that would have been, he might have won that workout against that crew. Quite frankly, you never know. He was in a precarious position because he wasn't in that final heat. I like, the story is so much better when the right people are racing each other. We know that. That's how more eyeballs get on these things. That's how there's more earned media after, because the race finished. Like, we need to be better than that. That's all.
And on that note, thanks, guys.
2 bonus questions.
Well, we Justin Cotler set it up too perfect to not discuss it, and I think we're all in agreement that would have been a better.
That was going to be my. By the way, no joke. That was going to be my topic. If for some like weird chance I ever won one of these things, that was going to be.
You got to risk it, like Justin. Go on the other side of party lines.
That's how many I've won in my history. Come on. Chase is like.
Now I gotta start taking my socks off to count.
Justin, congratulations. Thanks for joining us. Matt, Chase, thank you to our sponsor, Thirdsy. Another week of semifinals. Now we head to Carson for West Coast Classic. Torian Pro also this weekend. Thanks again, and we will see you guys next time.